Well, howdy, folks. Oh boy. Give this a few minutes, see how it goes. It's my second to last live stream from Guatemala. I'll do another one a week from today. And then I'll be in Ecuador. Hey, what's happening? Just saying, this is my second to last live stream from here in Guatemala. I'll be moving on down to Ecuador soon, but we got one more from Guatemala after tonight, and kind of curious what kind of questions we might have out there tonight. I know it's early; it's only 6:01 according to my clock. Don't worry, I had lots of coffee. So, what's on your mind, eternal spectator? We'll type in a few things. Oh, cool. Well, I'm not sure what I'll babble on about, but I'm sure I can come up with something. Um, tonight's topic is kind of building on the video that I posted this morning. That video is largely about my trip through Mexico and how my budget turned out. I'm getting buzzed. Oh, I think Wade mentioned something. I don't know if he's online or not. But anyway, it was about Mexico and my budget there and logistics that I encountered along the way. That said, the planning the trip to Ecuador is what made it on my mind. I plan on doing this trip in Ecuador a little bit different. Ooh, 87. If Mexico was lively then, probably a lot more affordable. Mexico was fun, and I can't go into detail about crazy things I did there, I guess. If you saw my video, I did bypass one of my planned stops because I foolishly didn't make advanced plans, even though it's going to be Day of the Dead in a really popular place. That said, I had a really good time down in San Cristobal. Hey, Marlene. So this year, the thought of why this week's videos got on this subject was one, I need to wrap up what I did in Mexico and try to quantify why I went over budget. I know to most people, my budget looked rather frugal, but it kind of broke my budget. It kind of constrained what I can do here in Guatemala to some degree. I do have some itchy nose. I do have some plans for my next trip to Guatemala. I'm gonna do things routed a little differently in the future. And back on the subject about flying into Ecuador this year, my goal is to do the super frugal thing. I am fortunately going to be able to arrive in Ecuador while it's nice and sunny, and I plan on catching the bus to the town I plan to go to. I figure I'll catch the bus. Worst case scenario, I have to go back to Quito to the northern terminal and then catch the bus back to Otavalo. Maybe I can just catch a bus to Otavalo at the airport. I will sort that out. And even in the worst case scenario, it probably won't cost me more than $10 versus $70 if I were to take a taxi from the Quito airport to Otavalo. It's last I knew it was $25 to catch a taxi to Quito. It's still a bit of a drive. And I have done that, and I've used private drivers, and I've had friends meet me there. So I figured this time, let's go ahead and complete circle and go ahead and do it via the bus, especially since I will arrive while the bus is operating. A lot of my past trips, I arrived too late at night to use the bus anyway. So, any folks got some questions? Oh, I'm going to catch I'm going to catch my flight from Guatemala City. I am going to have a layover in Panama, and then I will catch a flight from Panama to Quito, Ecuador. So it'll be Guatemala City, Guatemala, Panama City, Panama, Quito, Ecuador. That makes any sense. I think they're GUA. I think it's PAN. I'm not sure what Panama's abbreviation is. QUI, I believe, is the designation for Quito, if I'm not mistaken. Buenas tardes. I see Dave's made it in the house. So the airline ticket isn't super cheap, but it's not the cheapest one. It's getting tricky to fly even with carry-on nowadays. And I ended up paying for premium economy rather than going to plain bare bones economy because I did that once before and I got in a pickle down in Peru. So I'd spend an extra $40 over what I could have gotten a ticket for. But this way, I actually got to pick my seats. So I'll be in the aisle, which is great because I can get up, stretch my legs, and do whatever I need to do. Yeah, I'm only doing. I'm only going to have a short layover in Panama. I'm not really going to see Panama. I did give some thought to spending a day in Panama till I checked the prices out, and while it's a bit cheaper in the United States, it sounds like it's even more expensive than Mexico. So, due to overspending in Mexico, I'm going to move it on down toward the Andes where I know I can stick to a pretty tight budget and eat very well at the same time. Also, I have a lot of friends to try to catch up with, one of which is not back in Ecuador as yet, is he's planning on driving overland from the United States back to Ecuador. So I'll be following his trip. I don't think he's going to really post it on YouTube, but I'll be hearing about it, I'm sure, from text messages. Yeah, so just a transfer in Panama. Oh, the beer. If you go get beer in Lima, Peru, or I'm thinking Bronco in particular, that's where I found most of the best craft beer in Lima on my last visit. It will cost you in the vicinity of what you would pay in the United States. Both Miraflores and Bronco are kind of expensive. It's probably a little bit cheaper to be there than it is in the United States. But those are the two sections of Lima where most of the expats and tourists hang out, and thus they've driven up prices. If you get them to the edge of Barranco, you can find some reasonable places to get lodging. I found a nice hostel on the edge. And there was a pretty good beer garden just up street from there, kind of out of the touristy area, but it was still a little expensive. However, you get to Urubamba in the Sacred Valley, a short ride by Colectivo for about 5 or 6 soles from Cusco. You can get a half liter of really good craft beer for the equivalence of $3 when I was there. I'm not sure what the exchange rate is now, but it's not a bad deal. I want to say it was 12 soles. So that beer was really good too, because Urubamba has very high water quality, high quality water. The water tastes really good. Hence, the beer they make is exceptional. All the beer that I tried that was made in Sacred Valley was good. Urubamba had the best, in my opinion. I even had a cannabis beer in Urubamba, not at the local beer garden, but made somewhere nearby, and it was a interesting beer. It had a green tinge to it, and it made me thirsty. I got cotton mouth from drinking it. That's besides the point. Hey, Ellen. Christmas was good. It was kind of laid back. Well, it had lots of fireworks. It was kind of festive in that respect. The big day really here is Christmas Eve from like noon until midnight. It got pretty lively. The fireworks are really going off as it approached the time for midnight mass. They were very much must be allergic to something. It was very much festive. It was really cool. It was kind of, but Christmas isn't nearly as commercialized here. People do exchange gifts and such, but it's nothing like in the United States. It's a lot more about spending time with family and friends and sharing meals and things such as that, in my opinion. Kind of similar but different to Ecuador and the Andes, but not hugely. Mesoamerica and Andes are very different, but in a lot of ways, some of their festivities that I guess they borrowed from the Catholics are pretty similar. There is rafting opportunities in Peru, especially if you get there the right time of year. When I was there last time, the rainy season came early, and excuse me, you're bumping the table. And the rivers were blown out. Urubamba River was raging, especially in the vicinity of Machu Picchu. There was some serious terminal ledge holes, especially right there at Aguas Calientes. It was extremely rowdy. I would say it looked like Stikine or something up in Canada. It was raging. According to my friends, if you hit it at the right time of year, it's like class 3, class 4. But it wasn't when I was there. I mean, I had considered going visit a couple of the canyons, but the water was way too high, so that was a no go. And then as usual, while I was wandering around, I kept hearing all these great things to see from the locals. So I went down to the Bolivian border and checked out Lake Titicaca, floating islands, Tequila Island, and some ruins near Puno, Peru. So I didn't see all of it. Yeah, it's nice here. It's almost too warm here in Guatemala for my standards, but it's comfortable. It beats being really cold anyway. It's comfortable enough. I don't need any heating or air. It's pretty chill. I do like the weather better in Ecuador, especially in the Avenue of Volcanoes. Um, Yambira near Otavalo is really nice. It's a little on the cool side, especially where I generally stay up on the mountain. But Banos de Agua Santa, Ecuador, which is kind of near the gateway down to the jungle, but it's still up in the Avenue of Volcanoes, is perfect. I want to say it's around 8,000 feet, but the weather's just right. It feels like April in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and that's how it is forever. The only difference is if it rains a lot and gets cloudy, it gets warmer. Yeah, I think it's spelled a little different than tequila, but that's what it sounds like. It's definitely, if you go to Lake Titicaca, go to Puno, Peru, I think you'll really like it. The floating islands, day I went, it was really overcast and it was brutally cold. My guide told me that the people there generally only live to be about 60 or so, and they all have rheumatoid arthritis by the time they reach that age. I am sure they do because all my old motorcycle injuries were really hurting while I was walking around on the floating island. I didn't dare sit down for what I fear would be some consequences because it was cold and damp. I'm not sure I'm in much better shape than them, but I'm approaching the end of their lifespans in age, and I'm probably doing a lot better than they are. But there's some tough people living on those islands. They apparently moved off into those living on the Reed Islands the way they lived to avoid the Spaniards back in the day, and I guess it's stuck. It's a really tough way to live, though, but it's worth checking out. But Tequila Island had a lot nicer climate. It was a whole lot more comfortable. Of course, sun also came out the time I was over there. So that was way off subject, but hey, it doesn't matter. This is Q&A. So where were we before I wandered off on that? So the way, in my opinion, the best way to get around in Latin America is by the ample buses. You can go almost from any town to any town. The buses here in Central America tend to be chicken buses, which are basically really pimped out, chrome, stainless steel, fancy paint job raft buses. Oh yeah, and they add racks in them, sort of like the regular bus, so you can throw your luggage up on the rack if you want. They throw luggage up on the roof, and some of them even add put inverters in them and add electrical plugs where you can charge your devices while you ride around. But it's a used American school bus, but they're really cool. They have lots of chrome and paint and fancy, and they add really cool LED lights on them and LED message boards on them, like some of the big buses would have. The rest of Latin America, for the most part, has buses that make Greyhound buses look very primitive. They're usually really nice. So that's the cheap way to get around. I think the worst one, the most expensive bus ride I had was from Veracruz, Mexico to San Cristobal, which was a really long ride. And I think that one ran me $70 US, or the equivalent thereof. I want to say that bus ticket was um, 1,350 pesos, if I'm not mistaken. Still not a bad deal. Hey, well, tell Wade I said hey too. I think he did text me a minute ago about having trouble reading small prints. A little dark right here. So, any of you guys got some more questions out there? I mean, anything's on thing. I guess this show is about travel logistics or beer or whatever. A few of yous out there. It's nice to see y'all. I'm glad y'all got tuned in. I'm not sure what next week's video will be about. Travel is on my mind, so I'm sure it'll be something related. If anybody's got any burning thoughts, ideas, or questions that maybe prompt a video, I'm down for that too. Otherwise, I'm not absolutely certain what's coming up next week. Which Coney is your favorite? Oh, I think my favorite country is probably going to be Ecuador, and I really like Peru as well. Ecuador, one of Ecuador's advantages is the public hospitals are free and they're really good. I've had, in my opinion, the healthcare that I've received in a dark moment a few years ago in Ecuador was better than I could have hoped to have received in the United States. The public hospital is absolutely free. And I had to see a couple specialists and get an MRI. And for both specialists plus the MRI, the entire cost was $280. I also got everything I needed to have done within a total of 36 hours. Went to the hospital, then went to the next big town, Ambato, saw a specialist. He ordered MRI, which I got next morning. And then I saw another specialist that read it, wrote me some scripts. I followed their instructions, and lo and behold, I was better in a couple of weeks. I'm not sure that would happen in the United States. Oh, yeah, I have definitely been to Machu Picchu. I strongly recommend it. I'm sure I will go back. I will approach it a little differently. I'm going to do a little more research. I will probably see how early I can get into Coglit. Aguas Caliente means hot water. There are hot water springs. I think I'm going to get there a little bit earlier in the day and try to walk around town and find a nice hotel. I had a horrible room last time I was there. And I may try to get one further away from the train station and where all the businesses are, try to get further up the hill toward the hot baths, which might be more convenient, hang out for 3 days or more. I would kind of like to do the Machu Picchu again with a guide I might consider climbing up the two mountains. There's one across the Urubamba River, and there's another that you can access from Machu Picchu. I might do all three with the guide, and then I spend at least one more day and see Machu Picchu by myself so I can take my time wandering around and shoot some more interesting videos. I think that would be the most fun. I in my experience, if you get a guide the first time you see an archaeological site or someplace that's really culturally significant, it adds a lot of value to the adventure. But the guides have to play by the rules, and they have a strict timetable that they have to keep at Machu Picchu. So it would be a good idea to have a guide to really learn what it's all about, and then spend another day there and leisurely go along your own way. If you overstay a little bit, you'll probably get your hand slapped or something, but you're not going to get in a lot of trouble. You can backtrack a little, probably get away with it. I've done it a few places. I'm not saying you should, but you can kind of stretch the boundaries. Because what are they going to do to you? You're not coming back anyway. You know, you're not like the guy who's going to get in trouble and it's his livelihood. I do a lot of hiking or trekking or walking around, especially around Banos and some of the mountains. I have gone up on a volcano before, but they're really cold. The when you see a glacier at the top, you know it's cold. I made up close enough to one glacier to see that the glacier was at least 20 feet higher than the ground and decided that was far enough. It was really cold. I think it was at about 15,000 feet. I do like hiking along some of the rivers. I've hiked through some rainforests. Those are interesting too. I generally don't go with a full backpack or anything. I just carry enough a day pack, go for a nice long walk. But walking 10 kilometers, no big deal. And that includes going up and down and walking on stuff that's probably 45-degree angle. So you feel like one leg ought to be shorter than the other to make it easier. And then you see dairy cows and stuff wandering around where you would think only billy goats, mountain goats could get by. It's like a lot of the pastures that I've seen in the Avenue of Volcanoes are rather steep. So those cows, there's a reason that meat's kind of tough. That cows have a lot of exercise. It's not just standing around in a feedlot eating corn. They do taste better though because they're grass fed. There are guides. You can go see a lot of volcanoes. There's a volcano there at Banos de Agua Santa, Ecuador. If you go beyond the refuge, you definitely need to get a good guide because having been down at the base of that volcano and looking up at it's often cloudy, which means it'd be very foggy there and you could lose your way and pretty easily die of exposure, according to my friends, including one of which who is a guide. I have gotten some tips from them about how to do it safely, but I'm sure not going to chance it on my own. Be well worth paying a guide if you want to do that, but it'd be kind of a matter of timing and a lot of just blind luck really to get up there and have an awesome view. Because if it got really cloudy or what have you, you wouldn't see much. And if it had been raining recently, when the sun hits the ice, it starts evaporating and makes clouds. It's usually clouds up there. If it's been sunny for a long period of time and not raining, sometimes the glacier pretty much evaporates from that one, and in which case you probably could get a good view from up there. So there's your logistics there. There are some really tall volcanoes in Ecuador for those that really want to see something interesting. I've been up on the second tallest and made it up really close to the glacier. Some pictures somewhere on my social media that I'm not sure if that made it onto my YouTube channel or not. Someone text me. So, what else are you guys thinking about? Food's pretty cheap here in Guatemala, and I think if I spent more time here, I could probably eat almost as cheap as I do in Ecuador. Panachel is a bit touristy, so the prices are a little bit higher than what I could eat for in places I really read around Ecuador. I know where the locals eat, and I'm sure if I studied a little harder, I could probably figure out where the locals eat here in Panachel and shave off a little bit more money. But thus far, I have not figured out how to consistently eat for $2.50 for breakfast like I could in Ecuador. Oh yeah, the volcanoes are definitely active. Well, yeah, there's some of them erupt pretty regularly in Ecuador, and then there are others that they aren't actively erupting, but they're not dormant. They are being monitored because they will probably erupt again. Banos was evacuated back in 2000, and people basically had to resort to civil disobedience to reoccupy their town. Kind of an interesting story. Maybe I'll cover that while I'm down there. I might even interview one of the locals I know who snuck back to dad's house to keep an eye on the family place during the prohibition when they weren't supposed to be there. Oh yeah, street food's always good. I noticed in Ecuador that there's seems to be fewer people street vending in Ecuador than there used to be. Although there's some that are like legal, sanctioned, paying taxes. Street vendors, they're still there, but there used to be a lot of little mom and pops. They'd have a charcoal grill out by the corner of the neighborhood and be grilling chicken or sausage or you name it. And they were prevalent. You could find them everywhere. And the one near my neighborhood, back when they were doing this before the pandemic, they figured out what I like to eat. And I think they knew my schedule because whenever I come by, they would have a piece of chicken and be just about right. They knew I was coming. I forget how much it cost, but it was like the cheapest way to eat. It was pretty much probably almost as cheap as if I went and bought chicken myself and cooked it. It was a really good deal. Doo-doo-doo. Yeah. Yeah, I guess there is some truth to that, Alan. And I think that goes for everywhere. Or eventually, maybe you toughen up your intestines, or you learn the hard way which one's not to eat. My theory when I'm new in a place, if I see a vendor with a long line of locals waiting to get something to eat, I know it's probably good food. If there's no line, it's kind of sketchy. You don't know. Nice. That's nice. I like that, Dave. I have been eating here pretty good. If you've seen my pictures, I've been posting on social media. And I did one cooking video on YouTube. Yeah, I can eat almost anything, but I do have some gastric distresses occasionally as I go to new places, but not as bad as I used to, I don't guess. On the other hand, when I go back to North America, I have to be really careful what I eat there, or I really have some problems. I usually get sicker when I go home to the Blue Ridge Mountains. If I go eat like the local Americans do, usually makes me pretty sick. So I have to ease into it, or cook my own food, or go hang out with my Latino friends and hang out at some of the restaurants owned by Guatemalans or some of my Mexican pals, and I can pretty much eat that food and it doesn't do horrible things to me. There are some tiendas in North Carolina and Tennessee where you can buy basically the same food you can get down in Latin America. And they're a real good source for getting spices for a lot less than if you went to a typical grocery store. Yeah, I might have to go visit a few of the street vendors this week. I think I will maybe not do that for a few days before my flight, though. Just be on the safe side. So, about halfway through the hour, and kind of hit the food subject, I suppose. So, how many of you folks are willing to eat from street vendors or go to restaurants that don't have English on the menu? From my experience, it's safer to eat at places that do not have English on the menu down here. Well, when I say down here, I mean anywhere in Latin America. As if there's English on the menu, that means they paid somebody to print that menu and to translate and all. You're paying extra. And the few times that I did get a little ill or have some stomach problems in Peru was even supposedly places safe for Westerners to eat. I After I got ill twice, I decided I would just go down the main drag where all the local Peruvians went, and whatever place looked really busy at breakfast, I go find me a table and wait. And I didn't get sick anymore. So apparently that theory worked. It was also hugely cheaper and food tastes better too. I really think I can live cheaper in Ecuador than I can in Guatemala. On the other hand, I've spent a lot of time in Ecuador and I've figured it out. If I spent another year here in Guatemala, maybe I could do it cheaper, maybe the same price. I think I would have to find a different town to really beat the overall price. I will say that my apartment rent is pretty cheap. I'm here for like about I think $180 a month, which ain't bad. I have beat that in Peru though, but this place is really nice. I have a coffee maker. I got a real stove and oven. You got basically everything you could want. Got a refrigerator even with a decent sized freezer, bigger than what I have at home or in Guideland. I have a tiny refrigerator in Guideland. So it's hard to say. I will crunch the numbers when I get to Ecuador after I leave. I will try to divvy it all up and see how I did here in Guatemala. I am certain that I'm going to do a lot better than I did in Mexico. And it's debatable if I will beat what I've done in Ecuador before. Might be interesting to see what my expenses are compared to Guatemala and Ecuador this year. That might be a more fair comparison, seeing how worldwide inflation has kind of hammered food prices. We'll see how much stuff costs in Ecuador this year. It may have gone up. Daily budget. That's going to be hard to say. It definitely varies, but let's say my rent is less than $7 a day. There's $6 and something. I'm not exactly sure. My breakfast meal kind of varies. I had shrimp today, so I think the shrimp was. So my meal today might have been $2 or something. I'm not exactly sure. The vegetables are very cheap. The shrimp, I think, is like 40Q maybe for a pound, and that's good for probably 3 or 4 meals, depending on how much I want to eat. That's kind of extravagant today. And then sometimes I get snacks, peanuts, potato chips. My weakness is beer occasionally. I can get you can get Dead Guy Ale. Came all the way from California, and this can cost $2. So okay, I'm blowing up my budget on that. You get Negro Modelo, which comes out of Mexico, and the Negro Modelo is less than $1.50. It's like 8 or 9Q, and it's about 7 for per dollar. So it's less than $1.50. I really like that beer, by the way. There are cheaper beers you could drink, but I'm not drinking it just for effect. I'd rather get something that tastes good. Okay. Do do do. Yeah, Dave spent some time out of the country. He knows the deal when you see English on the sign on the menu, on the printed menu, on the wall. It's not necessarily a good sign. 30ish. I think I can stay down. Even drinking beer, I think I can stay below $20. In fact, I want to say my expenses in Mexico were definitely south of $30 a day. Probably closer to 20 or 20 something. I have to go back and look at the blog, which I might have up. Well, let's see. I could probably find that. I think I calculated what my daily costs were. And see recent documents. Oh no, I fibbed. Well, according to this spreadsheet, which looks slightly flawed, my expenses in Mexico were north of $50 a day. This spreadsheet is kind of damaged. I might have to look around to get some more. There was some socializing going on, and my second stay in Mexico City was really expensive, and that blew up my budget. Plus, I really didn't have much in the way of being able to cook. And in Mexico, there were places, Mexico City included, where I was trying to enjoy some of the local food that I'd heard about. And Puebla, especially, I did indulge in the food quite a bit. So here in Guatemala, we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm guessing the price is going to be south of $30, but I'm going to have to wait till I finish my tour here. I'm sure when I go to Guatemala City, that's going to be an expensive day, and we'll see how it all breaks out. I also did a lot of socializing for breakfast, but breakfast typically was anywhere from 30Q to 50Q. So probably not a lot of money there. World Cup, but that might damage my budget. Having some drinks or beers while I watched the game, that was probably expensive. We'll see. I had to dig that up. Yeah, like Dave's mentioned there has been a lot of socializing. I did catch up a lot of people I've been following for a while on the internet. So that definitely made things cost a little more money. I do some socializing while I ran around down in Ecuador as well, but not to the level I did here in Guatemala. Oh no, I think it was money well spent. And I'll try to revisit and update the budget I got on the blog that supports this morning's video. Try to hammer it out better, but it's pretty good. I think I broke down the daily cost for lodging because that was real easy to figure out, and the other ones I'll work on. I'll try to add another paragraph or something in the summary on the right side of that page or the bottom if you're using mobile. So it's getting kind of quiet out there again. So daily budgets, it's hard to say. In Ecuador, the Mercado there's a nice market here too, in Mercado, but they sell more stuff besides food than food. Whereas a lot of them in Ecuador, there's more food than anything else in the Mercado. There's always shops where you buy trinkets and stuff if that's your thing. But there's a lot more competition, a lot more food vendors, so the prices seem to be lower. For instance, here it cost me 1 cube for a jalapeno, which it's only 12 and a half cents, but to me, 12 and a half cents or 15 cents or whatever seems a little steep for a jalapeno. I'm thinking I could go to the local market in the United States and get a jalapeno for about the same price when buying it by the pound. I know when I buy fruits and vegetables at the markets in Ecuador, I spend less than $1 and I walk out with a grocery bag full of food. The uh, the zucchini's a lot smaller here than it grows on the equator. The carrots are too, but the air here is a little bit drier, I think, than what I'm accustomed to in Ecuador. And if you don't put vegetables in the refrigerator or something, they tend to go bad quicker. They seem to keep longer in the environment in Ecuador. On the other hand, it's a bit cooler there than what I'm experienced down here in Guatemala. Yeah, I saw Wade's post about that fine for the cheap hotel. How did I start rafting in the U.S.? Well, I started rafting as a kid in the '70s with my family, early '70s. So I guess I've been playing in water for most of my life. It's like over 50 years. And then I got back as the technology improved and they started making kayaks that are virtually indestructible and could really paddle well over steep creeks, waterfalls, and stuff. And they're really easy to roll. And they made technology got better. I got hooked on kayaking really bad to the point of I negotiated with my boss and I was getting a lot of remote time so I could wander around, chase the water, and go kayaking. And then during the droughts, I guess, I don't know, 15 years ago, or it's been a while anyway, the bad droughts toward the end of the 2000s, I ended up on the Ecoe River because there wasn't enough water hardly anywhere else that was fun to kayak. Read that's exciting. So I started spending a lot of time on the Ecoe for consistent water flow and fun rapids. And I just go out there and try to make them as interesting as I can, trying to make the class 3 or 4 as hard as I possibly could, catching funky little eddies and doing stuff, practicing for creek boating in the winter. And it wasn't too long that the local outfitters started taking notice, and I started getting job offers. And I guess about 2013 or so, I took one of them up on it, and they didn't know I knew how to raft. They just knew I kayaked. I didn't share a lot of information. And by the end of that season, they had me training people how to run the class 4 section in their rafts. So it's kind of how I got into it. And then by the time 2014 rolled around or so, I realized that on a good day on the river, I could make more money than I did with my day job. And flash forward a few more years, 2017, I decided I really didn't want a real job so I could spend more time in Latin America where I'd already been down kayaking. And I had figured out that I could make pretty good money on some days. You can't make really good money all the time, but it works for me. I can make enough money between May and September to fund my frugal lifestyle ratting around Latin America. This year, I might be pushing it a little bit because of Mexico blowing my budget up some. We'll see. I guess I'll be paying attention to what I eat if things get crazy. It's kind of just fell in my lap. I didn't really plan to do all this stuff. It just at a certain point around 2016 or so, I was really unhappy with my job. I had another new manager to train, and it was painful. So I decided to go, chunk it all in the wind and see what happened. Go chase my dreams while I still was young enough to. I don't regret it. I don't have a lot of money, but I have a good time. Cool. Yeah, come on out rafting. I really do enjoy it a lot. It's got to the point it's almost an addiction like kayaking now. I generally work the season when the upper Ocoee is running on the Ocoee's got an upper section and a middle section. The upper section is class 4, and the middle section is class 3. The middle section is very technical, but it's all class 3. It's pretty chill. That's the place to take grandma if you want to go down. Grandma wants to go down to Ocoee. She should definitely run the middle first, not the upper. The upper can, let's say, if you have an out of boat experience on the upper, it can be very exciting and maybe really scary for the uninitiated. That said, it's only class 4. It's pretty survivable. Uh, it's a lot of fun. Ellen's been rafting with me a few times, maybe several times. I've lost track. I got a lot of videos out there on my YouTube channel, Fast Fred Ruddick. Here, I'll go ahead and type out the handle for it. I think I can spell my name. No, I can't. And of course, this one's anyway, Fast Fred Ruddick. You can see my YouTube channel. It's got videos of rapping going back several years. Some of them are less good than others. I've learned a lot over the last few years. But rapping, all in all, ain't a bad way to make money. You're not going to get rich, though, that's for sure. And if you're not making tips, you won't be doing it long because they don't pay hardly anything. It's sort of like being a waiter or waitress. They give you the opportunity to earn tips, more or less. It ain't all bad. Once you figure it out, it's a good time. There are good days and there are bad days, just like it is for servers at a restaurant. 3 times. Yeah. There are bigger rivers than the Ocoee, and Ellen went up to the Golly and got to playing some of that. And that was an exciting video she shared with me. She had an out of boat experience. Yeah, I believe it was Pillow. It's pretty thrilling video. Things happen. I think the Nardboards even ran that clip on their one of their social media feeds. It's all good, clean fun. Hey, we're all going to die of something. Might as well have fun while you're here, sitting around sitting there watching TV and eating bonbons and drinking beer. Is going to help you live longer. You go out there and do something, get some exercise. Who knows? You probably outlive everybody else that was scared anyway. So yeah, so sometime probably Memorial Day weekend, I'll be back out there working. Possibly I'll show up a little early. I do have to recertify for my advanced first aid, wilderness first aid training this year. So I'm going to be nagging my boss a lot in the next month or so to figure out when the training will be so I can make sure I get back in time. Then I will stay in Tennessee until the upper Ocoee section is turned off. Generally, it turns off the week after Labor Day. And after it's turned off, I don't feel like my employer will get sore if I leave because they know where I'm going. But I try to stick around till the class 4 section's done so they don't have to put a rookie up there and deal with the mayhem that might cause. Pillow Rock. Oh yeah, you did really good. It could have been a lot worse. If you fell off, that wasn't a bad place to do it, I don't suppose. It definitely made a good video, and I'm sure a lifelong memory. I've swam in worse places. It happens. Yeah, I'm hoping to hop on the water taxis and visit some other towns around the lake. Maybe go back over to San Pedro on Sunday and get some barbecue. Somehow I was lazy or busy doing something over Christmas, so I missed my opportunity to do that. I was probably writing or coding something. I don't know what I was doing. But yeah, I hope to see a little bit more around the lake. I'm not sure how much I'm going to see. I kind of do want to go see the memorial to the children or students that were killed during the Civil War. I hear that's nearby. I'll probably be in Alan's ear to get some intel, see which bus I need to catch or how I can get there to see that. There's a lot of history around here. Most of the main ruins are further north, although I did go see one, which there is a video about it. Campesinos, yeah. Yeah, I do know that the campesinos were often targeted, and I was watching some documentaries today on the web about that. And I guess that's hugely different. Some of the controversies of what's happened up in Mexico. Maybe it was probably worse during the Guatemalan Civil War. Certainly, similar things happened in El Salvador, from what I've read too. American foreign policy. Well, some of it's greedy locals too. It's not funny, but it's reality. And campesinos are like kind of like the old hillbilly subsistence farmers who live on the land. They don't have a whole lot. And the indigenous people living much like that in Peru are pretty pissed off right now for understandable reasons. According to one of my friends in Lima, it's getting to be problematic with food deliveries in Lima. And my pal down there is a Peruvian national. He's not a gringo. So I would trust what he's been telling me. So we're kind of winding down. It's your last 9 minutes. Get in a question. Nothing's off limits, I don't reckon. We've wandered way off topic, and that's cool. I mean, that's part of what it's all about. Don't mind talking about rafting either, although it's going to be a few months before I get out there and do it, I think. And I am planning on trying to visit some friends in Tana this year, but I'm not sure when I'm going to get there. I'm waiting on one of my pals that's still up in North America. When he gets down there, I might want to go chat with him and see what his outpost is doing down there in Ecuador. I prefer to associate with the Ecuadorian owned outpost. I don't have any desire to deal with the gringo owned outpost. I don't think they're on as good a footing as they think they are with the locals. I don't want to help extract money from Ecuador. I'd rather help Ecuadorians make money if I'm going to be involved in commercial rafting there. So y'all must be getting tired. Anyway, like I said, the reason I did the video this week on logistics because it was on my mind while I was daydreaming about how I wanted to go into Ecuador. I find it's getting more and more challenging to figure out what the airlines are really selling. They get tricky. I think they do it on purpose, saying charge you an extra fee when you show up, and oh no, your ticket doesn't include carry on. You got to pay extra, or what have you. It seems pretty easy to figure out what the checked baggage deal is, but sometimes it's not quite as apparent about the carry on and personal item. Sometimes it'll include a personal item, but carry on is extra. So it's getting very confusing. So while I was researching that, it made my mind start wandering about other things. And I was also curious how people felt about how confusing it is leaving the airport and catching their ride into the city or to their lodging if they just go to the taxi kiosk and take whatever they offer, or if they did a little research and knew what their other options might be, as in if they could take the bus and such. See, Alan said something. Oh yeah, the sunset looked pretty awesome today. Although I was kind of I wasn't down at the beach or the lake, but standing up on the balcony, I could see it, the sun slipping behind the clouds and volcanoes. It was pretty. There are some great views here. I will give that. The lake really has some awesome views here, especially early in the morning. Today seemed to be a pretty clear day compared to some others. A lot of times it gets kind of hazy and you can't see the volcano so good, but in the mornings it's usually spectacular view, and sometimes in the evenings it is as well. Yeah, Cambodia. Maybe I'll make it there one day. There's a few things I'd like to see there, but I don't think there's any hope of me learning an Asian language. I figure I'm doing good trying to pick up some Spanish. I need to get good enough so I can get citizenship in Ecuador eventually in a few years as my retirement plan. I don't think I'm going to be able to afford to live in the United States. And quite frankly, I think I'd be a lot happier in Ecuador anyway. May I come home and visit in the summers and kayak and raft as long as I'm able. Oh yeah, Dave, you could definitely come run the middle of Coe. I think you would have a blast. Gary could too. It's pretty fun and it's pretty laid back. There are some good places to eat nearby. And if you miss Latin America, there is a Mexican restaurant. And then there's another one. It's called Mexico Loco. It's really Guatemalan restaurant. Their Mexican food is good, but you'll agree with me if you go there. They make their own corn tortillas, and it is a little more Guatemalan style. It'd be kind of like the tacos you'd eat around here in town. It's a little different, but it's very good. And all to let you know how good the Guatemalan food is there at Mexico Loco and Copper Hill, Tennessee. That's where all the local Latinos working in the United States hang out, especially on Friday nights. So they know where the good food is, and it's pretty fun bunch to hang out with on Friday nights, listening to the Mexican music videos and drinking beer. A lot more fun than hanging out at the Outpost. And the beer is economically priced there compared to the competitors. There's another place called Habaneros. It's not Mexican. It's barely Tex. They have really bland food. The cook isn't even allowed to use cumin. It's kind of like the American fast food version. My understanding is a local country folk that's even paler than me owns that place. Although she did steal a chef from one of the other Mexican restaurants, but he ain't allowed to cook with any spices. Salt is the only spice she allows. And I'm not talking smack. I went to the place and left an honest review about their salsa and their bland food, and they thanked me for it because that's the demographic they're going after. Ooh, 50-cent draft beer in Cambodia. Yeah, I've heard from my brother about the street food in Thailand. He said it was really good. He was there training with their special forces probably 10 years ago. I can't remember exactly how long it's been. One of his easier deployments. But anyway, he spoke really highly of the food. I think he's been hooked on Thai food ever since, looking around in the United States trying to find the best places. So, reckon going to wrap this up. Thank you for coming. You guys, if you got any kind of crazy questions or ideas for videos, now's time to spew them out. Put them in the chat, or you can, better yet, you can leave them in the comments below. I'm not sure if I remember to click the button to save the live chat or not on this. I kind of forget to do that. Last week, I did not check the right button, and well, it was too late when I realized I didn't. I think you have to do that before the session begins. At any rate, Happy New Year, everybody. It's coming up this weekend. I wish I was in Ecuador, Baños de Agua Santa, Ecuador to be exact. They have some lively festivities for New Year's. You have to go check it out. Words will not do it justice. I think I do have some video clips somewhere, but I'm not sure if they're only on Facebook or if I also put them onto YouTube. Maybe next year I'll get to Ecuador in time to record some more of the festivities and their crazed race down the hill, and the name of it is misleading. You think they're going to have wooden dirt soapbox races, but it's more like the luge, or races in the Olympics. They actually have rails on the back of these cars to push them to get them to go faster, and then it'll go down hills. But there's also sections that go downhill, then I have to push it uphill, and they'll go down another hill. But they're all welded together out of metal. They are really heavy duty. Occasionally they break and crazy things happen. But there's lots of other crazy things that go on there. It's a pretty festive time of year coming through December. So happy New Year. You guys got any ideas? Throw them my way. Definitely consider coming rafting this summer. If you're up for some adventure, it's a good time. If you're a little leery about it, you can definitely check out the Milicoe. Feel free to reach out to me and ask questions. I have videos that can show you what it's like. And your trip can be geared for what you have in mind, especially when you request your guide, like someone like me. I can make the river feel different for different people. Just like I'm out there kayaking and I feel really frisky, I can make it a lot more exciting than if I'm just kind of bombing down the rivers, having a quick good time, getting wet and cooling off in the heat. So hope you all have a good night. Oh yeah, man. We got to catch up, Dave. I got like almost 2 weeks left here, right about 2 weeks. So would like to see everybody. I am going to try to get out and explore around town and over a bit. I did jack up my left foot a couple weeks ago. It only hurts a little to walk now. So I'd be more apt to wander a little further, but it definitely was painful for a while there. At any rate, peace out from Guatemala. There'll be one more live stream from Guatemala before I move on back down to the Andes. And I hope you guys are all having a really good night. And I will see you again soon. Happy New Year!